Okay, so sorry, probably scared a few people there. All right, so I've got 7 o'clock, 1900 on Tuesday, the 24th of October, 2023. Again, 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, 1900 for those 24-hour clock inclined. 24 October. This is LDR 440, leading change, week 2. So had the Zoom session last week. I had some technical errors. Essentially, I was having a memory issue, not personal memory, which is always a problem. In fact, mine's gotten so bad, my wife made me hide my own Easter eggs this year. So a little levity there for you. So I apologize for last week's session, uh, the video quality and just what it was. I regret that. Hopefully, it didn't cause too big of an inconvenience for everybody. I'm going to go ahead and pause for a couple minutes, or at least one, just to see if anybody is going to join us tonight. And if not, I will cover a few things to include the schedule next week. There will be an impact on the Zoom session and the two final papers, I think is what I want to talk about. We'll see if anybody joins and talk what they want to talk about. So anyway, let me pause this for about a minute. All right, so I'm back. It's 7:04. Thank you, everybody, for that. I just wanted to make sure we weren't going to get joined here, and so far it doesn't look like we are. All right, so let's talk about a couple things. One of which is you've we've had our first round, our first week. Um, Everybody did a fine job on the discussion forum. Those of you that did turn in work, there was a couple that did not, and if you did not, then I hope everything's okay. And I would ask that you contact me. Let me know everything is okay. Um, for those that did put in feed or comments and then provided feedback to at least two others, that was a great job. And the grades reflected that. If anything, I probably graded a little bit high on this go around, not substantially, but as we continue down the road, I'm going to want to see you get a little bit closer to what I'm looking for, or at least know what I'm looking for. Part of that is as the instructions apply. Want you to answer the question and then provide evidence for your response. This time around, it's kind of a fun one this time around. You're going to take an exercise and then answer a few questions. I'll cover that here in just a minute. The quiz, most everybody did well on the quiz. A couple did not. Not substantially bad, just some room for improvement. I typically on the quizzes, if 3/4 of the class misses a particular question, then I will go back and review that question. I will review it to ensure that it's accurate and fair. And what I mean by accurate, that the answer is, in fact, the answer. All these questions come out of your text, so they should be fair, but sometimes the wordage isn't quite what it should be, verbiage or whatever the proper term is. The in this particular case, although some questions were missed and a couple of you missed the same question, we were nowhere close to 3/4 of the class missing a particular question. So I didn't review any of those. Some of you scored 100 on the quiz, which reinforces my thought that the quiz was decent or fair. As you can see, the format, you'll get true and false, and a series of what I call best answer, not multiple choice, best answer. And I think Everybody again did okay. So the key on it is because it's timed, you have the time to take the quiz if you've read the material. If the first time you're seeing the material is when you're taking the quiz, you're not going to have enough time. So just be cognizant of that. And then if there are any questions, issues, concerns, please let me know. All right, so I'm sharing my screen with me. You should see this is the textbook. It's Palmer's edition, 4th edition of Managing Organizational Change, multidiscipline or multiple perspectives approach, I should say. Multiple perspectives approach. Last week, as you know, in some of the questions, one of the questions I asked you was difference between leading and managing change, and what the difference was, or what you thought was organizational or managing change. One of the questions that talked about it was the difference between management and leadership. And I posit to you that the difference is, even though they're very similar, and many of the actions are parallel or similar, the main difference I was after was looking at management is more about a bottom line focus, bringing order to a system, whereas leadership, the leader is in place to provide the vision and the movement to attain that vision, more of a top level approach, if you will. So if we articulate that, or if we translate that into managing or leading change, text says managing change, that implies more of a bottom line focus, bringing order to change, okay, executing it. Leading change would be you came up with the vision for the organization, how that change would apply to that organization, and then your influence on people to make that change happen. So you could see a nuance to be sure, but the difference. As always, check your announcements. I will put out an announcement after we're done with this Zoom session for next week. Next week is the 31st, All Hallows Eve or All Saints Eve, I guess. Halloween, because we have trick-or-treaters in this neighborhood. And I've tapped I've tapped the code on handing out candy to kids. Is I put a fire pit out front, and I sit around the fire pit as the kids come up. So it's very civilized. Some years it gets too warm around here, but I don't know. Today we had to put on our winter coats. Got a little nippy. Anyway, so make sure you're checking your announcements. That's where you'll also find the assignment instructions for the next week. And in a couple weeks, that's where I'll post the grading rubric I will use for the first of your 2 papers. So as you can see, this course is a little bit easier up front. You answer a couple questions or one question on discussion forum, provide feedback to a couple of your fellow students, and then take a quiz. And that's and then obviously read your material. Excuse me, I apologize. So not too onerous, I think. The key on it is don't get caught short, because you have a paper due worth 30% of your grade in week 6, and that's a personal change paper. And then week 7, you have another paper due, which is worth 30% of your grade, and organizational change. Did I put that right? Let me double check that. So here's week 6. Again, yes, you have some readings. There's your discussion forum, 2 questions, quiz. Okay, yes, I got it right. So again, week 6, personal change paper, 30% of your grade. Again, I'll put the rubric that I will use to grade this paper out in a couple weeks. Remember, even though I give you a word count, I give you a word count or page count, understand that that's predominantly to give you at least some insight into how much effort I think you should put into it. I do not grade based on it. If you can address all 8 of these areas that I've listed here and give adequate support to all 8, and you could do that in less than 800 words, go for it. Your grade will be based on how you answered. If, however, you wind up taking 30 pages, or 10,000 words to get after all these, then go for it. Do it. The key is being efficient, right? Not being too verbose. Make your points, okay? But on the personal change, you want to go with a meaningful personal change you want to make. You're going to articulate your vision, okay? And your textbook tells you how to do that. You're going to go through the forces driving that change. The text gives you forces. I'm going to have you explore some of the barriers to make that change. Your text tells you what barriers to change there are. There's some personal strengths and weaknesses that will affect that change effort. So this is a time of self-reflection. You're going to tell me what those are. You're going to discuss why you've resisted this change or might resist it in the future. Okay. And then develop a strategy for accomplishing the change using concepts from the text. So the text will tell you what some of those change models are and strategies for same. And then finally, 8, how you will influence others to support your change. Okay, so critical piece here of how you're going to get others to help you out. Okay. All right. Remember, as in everything, this is this is not a research paper. This is you answering these questions. With that said, I want you to try to bring the text in as much as you can when you're answering the 8. Okay. Concepts, models, principles that the text gives you. Again, this is how we grade or otherwise determine your mastery of the learning objectives for the course. So bring the text in, okay? All right. And as always, each of these weeks has some PowerPoints there for your use. Okay. So we talked about next week, I'm going to cancel the Zoom session. I'll put a notice out. There will not be for Tuesday. And let's take a look at what the week has in store for us. All right, so this week you were to read chapters 2 and 3, images of change management. Okay, this is something to keep in mind for the rest of the course. Are these images? So let's put those to memory and understand the table. Okay, what level of change we're dealing with, and what our change images are. Okay, and they include some organizational development images, just to kind of round out the theories. Okay, so take a look at that. Make sure you got it, because I'm going to want to see you use that as you answer in the future. Okay, identify what image of change you are under at that point. Okay. All right. So that is predominantly what the self-assessment exercises you're going to do. So on pages 49 through 51, you're going to take the self-assessment exercise. There are answers provided to you on page 51. You're going to take your 2 highest scores, identify those, and note those as your dominant images for change, and then check your understanding of those images with what is provided to you in table 2.4. Okay. And then I asked, do these images of change management involve actions that you would be uncomfortable taking and why? Okay, what would be your problems with executing the changes that you indicated in the self-assessment are your dominant ones, okay? If you have one or two dominant images, would you feel about being advised to use the other low scoring images if conditions indicate that they would be more appropriate? In other words, if you did not score um, the navigator image or the caretaker image, how would you feel if I advised you in a certain situation to use that image as part of your leading change? And this is getting into an aspect of that contingency leadership, right? Okay, not one size fits all, not one solution to every problem, but using your tool bag, if you will, the leadership tools that you've learned and are learning to fix a particular problem. Okay, if your six scores are similar, does that mean you're able to act differently in different change settings? In other words, if you didn't have a dominant change image, was it because when you answer the questions, you indicated that you tend to change from, or switch, if you will, from one image to another, depending on the circumstance? Okay. Again, no right or wrong answer in that regard. It's what you are doing, what you are reporting. This is a self-reflection, and this is laying a foundation, if you will, or a marker in what we're going to do in the future with this course. Okay, so take this seriously and come up with your two, and let me know. All right, discussion question number 2 takes you into chapter 3, and again, you're reviewing the change management images that are provided to you in table 3.1. Okay, and I ask you which image or images do you relate better to when faced with changes in which you're currently engaged? In other words, right now, when confronted with change, what images do you tend to use or better relate to? Okay, and in your answer, again, I want you to explain why that is. So remember, the fundamental relationship, the one that matters the most, particularly in this course and in others with me, is your conclusion and the evidence you use to support that conclusion. Okay, answer the question. And then in your answer, you're going to provide evidence. And that's that 3 to 5 things that support your answer. Okay. And I want you to get used to doing that. And that's predominantly the purpose and methodology behind this question and all of them, and quite frankly, your paper. Okay. If I hope that makes sense. If there's any questions on that, certainly let me know. You can have your post uploaded by the 25th, which is tomorrow, no later than 23:59. For those inclined on the 24-hour clock, 11:59 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And then do your individual comments to at least 2 other student posts, no later than that 23:59 on Friday. Okay, don't get hung up on this 23:59. That's not sacrosanct. And as many of you know, that quiz is due at 1500 or 3 p.m. on Sunday, the 29th. Your quiz, the week 2 quiz, I will release it at about noon on Wednesday, the 25th. And it will cover chapters 2 and 3. So if you've done your reading assignment, pulled your PowerPoint presentations, looked at your notes, you should be fine. Again, a time limit of 45 minutes and you get 1 attempt. Don't attempt the quiz unless you're in a place and time that you won't get interrupted, okay? Again, you may use your course materials, but do not collaborate with other students, please. Okay, and that rounds out that week. All right, and then as I said, next week, which would be the Tuesday of week 3, we will not have a session. I will go in and close that out. I'll cancel it tonight. That gives you some time to spend with your youngins if you are so inclined on Halloween night. All right. Um, so nobody's dialed in, and I'm doing all the talking again. I'm going to rest here for a second, see if anybody does dial in, and if not, I'll continue. All right. So for those of you that may not know how to find the Zoom session, you would go into Student Lounge, and as you scroll down, you go past the introduction forums and the help forums. Um, it's been a couple days since I checked this. I don't think. Let's take a look at the introduce yourself forum. Everybody has, or most of you, some of you. Hey, look at that. That's a good one. Very good. Um, let me let Brooke know. All right, I apologize to you, Brooke, for taking a while to get that back to you. Thank you for doing it in. All right. Um, all right, so let's take a look at if we're having any problems. Nobody's really brought any up, so I'm assuming everything's going well. Okay, that's all I can do. Yeah, nobody's put anything here. Again, this particular piece of form to ask for help is for routine or non-emergency. Uh, Sometimes I ask you all to put yours here because you may be asking a question that your fellow students have a question about as well. So this is to assist everybody. Okay. When I say routine or non-emergency, that means that it's going to be not too long, but at least give me 24 hours to respond. And that's, or a little bit more. Okay. If you send me an email, give me 24 hours to respond. And I do better than that normally, but again, depending on when and what the issue is. If we're having an emergency or it's urgent, then I would say text or call me, and I give you my number there. Okay. And that's usually something that I should respond to you within 2 hours. Again, note the time of day. Okay. If you text me at 3 in the morning, you might need to give me more than 2 hours. Okay. For obvious reason. All right. Well, we're getting up to about 30 minutes of this, so I'm going to probably start winding it down. Let me show you that paper that's due in week 7. Again, remember your papers are due on Sunday, 23:59 or 11:59 p.m. So the week 6 paper, 30% of your grade, is the personal change project, and then your week 7, again worth another 30% of your grade, organizational change project. Okay, so here's where your work is making up for the light weeks that I've given you. In other words, because you have two major papers, 30% of your grade each, or if we combine the two papers for 60% of your grade, I want you to have the time to work on it, which is why I don't assign a writing assignment over the weekends. This is designed to give you time to write these two papers. Okay. All right. The organizational change project is structured very similar to the personal change. In other words, you have 8 areas to address, but they're slightly different. Okay. Same amount of space that I want you to take in word or page count or effort. Okay. Change that you believe is necessary for your organization, department, or team. Okay, whichever one you've got. So not all of you work full time. Some of you are active in your church. Some of you volunteer. Some of you may want to write about change in your family. Okay, so pick that organization, that family, that entity that you have a change you believe is necessary, and then articulate that vision, what your future state is. What are the forces driving that change? Again, in your text. What are some of the barriers to making the change? Again, your text. Design what organizational systems and culture will affect your change. Okay, again, your text will relate that. And then possible resistance, to the change. Okay, the difference between resistance and barriers. In your text will cover that. For the purpose of argument, I still want you, before you write this paper, to tell me what change image you're using as part of this paper. And in the 7 here, the strategy for accomplishing the change, I want you to use Cotter's 8-step process. And again, like last week, I noted, you'll learn more about Cotter's 8-step process in week 3 or 4, I think week 4. Okay, you'll get a dose of it, so you shouldn't have any problem. There are other N-step models, but I want you to use Cotter's, regardless of the change image you give me, okay? And then final, how you're going to influence others to support the change. That is a critical piece of leadership. In any N-step model, particularly in Cotter's, is how you're going to sustain the change. Okay, just making it doesn't answer the mail. How do you ingrain that into your organization where that change becomes now the preferred? Okay. All right. Again, on all your papers, proper spelling, grammar, general organization. I recommend you use page headers, as APA format will tell you. Each of these can be a paragraph header, and that helps you organize your paper. More so, it helps you write it so that you make sure you address all these issues. Okay. Sometimes some of you forget to address, like, for example, forces driving that change. Well, if I don't see that paragraph, if I don't see you writing about that, then that becomes a hit, okay, on your grade. Okay, general adherence to the APA. Understand I am not an English major, but I do know what spelling and grammar is out there. Proofread your paper because, Microsoft and Grammarly doesn't always catch all the improper uses, right? Proofreading will. And make sure you get it uploaded. These have got to be in Moodle for me to grade per University of Mount Olive policy. Okay. So emailing me a file won't always work. It's got to be uploaded. I cannot upload it for you. Only you can do that for obvious reason. The reason it's got to be in Moodle is that's the system that University of Mount Olive uses. Again, as part of the process the universities go through for their accreditation, teams will come in and review what work that the students have uploaded and then see how the instructor graded same. In part, that's for your protection. In part, that's just part of ensuring the quality control is there. Okay. But again, it all starts with making sure you got your paper, all your work uploaded in Moodle. That includes your forum discussions, your quizzes, and the like. Okay. All right. So I got 7:32. I'm going to start winding this down. Again, I'm going to cancel next week's Zoom session. That would be the week 3 Zoom session because of Halloween. We're going to be in November before you know it. So make sure you're staying ahead and you're already thinking about those papers. Again, I will send out the rubrics a couple weeks prior. Okay. If any questions, as always, contact me. If not, I encourage everybody to keep doing what you're doing. You're doing well. I really enjoy what you provide, the insights, vignettes, the personal stories. I want you to continue to do that. I encourage you all to continue. Everybody's doing fine. Okay. All right. Well, listen, 7:33 on Tuesday, 24 October. I'm going to sign off. I appreciate everybody's time and attention, and I wish you the best.